Hey viewers and viewresses, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to Say Being Hunted. So, time for another podcast style episode, methinks. I know we've been doing this for a while and really I need to be thinking of a challenge that I can actually get on with. Especially since obviously by the time this video goes out we'll be in December. Christmas is soon probably going to be upon us and all that, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you're all out there doing your Christmas shopping, doing your Christmas preparations and whatever else have you. Yes, I'm on a new map, by the way, just because, I don't know, I kind of got bored of the previous one. So I decided just to do a new one, because why the hell not? It's my series, I'll do what I want, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so, yeah, podcast style episode, like I say, that we're going to do today. I do actually have an interesting topic of conversation in mind, because I was sort of thinking recently about, this is about kind of horror concepts and things like that, ladies and gentlemen, which I've encountered before online. But obviously, I've talked before about, how I'm a fan of the whole backrooms concept, and I've played a few of those backroomsy sort of games by now on the channel. I've played, obviously, the complex games, I've played, both of those. I've played the complex found footage, complex expedition. I've played a couple of, much smaller indie backrooms themed games in my indie horror playlist. I did that Animalopolis, or whatever it was called. Recently I did that Lost Hope Backrooms game, fairly recently. And the thing is, I have other backrooms games that I'm sort of keeping my eye on at the moment, ones that are currently in development and things like that. And I also do technically have a game in my Steam library called Escape the Backrooms, which I'm sure many of you have probably heard of. It's a backrooms game which you can technically play single player, though I think mainly it's intended to be played co-op with friends. And I, have been thinking for some time about playing that, and I've talked about the backrooms as a concept before, if not on my Say Being Hunted series, then certainly probably in my various backrooms games that I've played. But what was interesting is that I know there's another backrooms game available on Steam, and it's called Inside the Backrooms. I'm sure people have heard of it. It's a curious one, because it's one of those backrooms games which has a lot of monsters in it, to put it that way. And I know that there is a bit of a source of debate here on the internet between people who are fans of the more sort of monster-filled backrooms games versus those people who are more sort of fans of the less sort of monster-filled backrooms games, to put it that way. Because the thing is, the original backrooms concept, if you go back to like the OG 4chan post or whatever it was that kind of started the whole thing, the original backrooms concept was just the idea of sort of being trapped in this kind of weird liminal space on your own with no apparent way out. The fear of you'll be trapped there forever on your own until you eventually sort of starve to death or whatever. And that original concept had kind of the hint that there might be a monster in there with you, but it didn't actually confirm it. And so for many people, the essence of the backrooms is meant to be just horror from kind of a sense of isolation and weirdness, rather than necessarily any outright identifiable threat. And I am a fan of that kind of concept for the backrooms, myself. I do like the idea of that kind of liminal space horror, of the horror coming from just the sense of general isolation and unease at not knowing what this place is that you find yourself in. But the thing is, on the sort of other side of the spectrum, you have people who are much more into the backrooms as kind of like a place of monsters and strange entities. And the thing is, games like Escape the Backrooms and Inside the Backrooms are very much emblematic, I suppose you could say, of that kind of approach to the concept. Because the thing is, if you look at those types of games, pretty much every level I think you go to in them has some kind of monster in it, some kind of monster or entity that you have to avoid. And the thing is, it was interesting because I was watching on one of the Yogscast channels, Ravs. He did a video on Inside the Backrooms, and it was that same kind of debate which was essentially cropping up in the comments between those who prefer the sort of backrooms as a kind of place of isolation, where the horror comes from just general sense of concern and being unsettled by the weirdness of the environment, as opposed to those who enjoy the sort of more monster-oriented horror. And what was kind of fascinating about reading those comments that people were leaving was just the general sense that, to some extent, you know, the backrooms has kind of turned into this SCP sort of thing, to put it that way. So you mean, you know, everyone's familiar, of course, with SCP, you know, the sort of idea of a secret organisation that contains weird, anomalous creatures and entities and objects and things like that. And certainly, you know, the backrooms in some iterations definitely feels like it's kind of turning into that, with, how should I say, some backrooms canons, and I stress canons, you know, canons according to various fans, because the thing is, there is no official backrooms canon, there's no single backrooms lore or anything like that, but in some canons, some laws that certain fan communities set up, you know, you have things like crazy numbers of entities and monsters on different levels of the backrooms, and you'd have like things like groups of survivors who are living out in there, things like this, which obviously is very different to the traditional conception of the backrooms being this place of isolation and weirdness. But it was kind of humorous reading some of the comments on that Ravs video, because of the fact that there were people sort of talking about how it feels like some fan communities are turning the backrooms into kind of the dumping ground for SCP rejects, to put it that way. As if, you know, the SCP Foundation itself doesn't have its own fair share of cringy or just generally kind of mediocre entries. And that actually got me sort of thinking about SCP, because obviously it's been a while since I played an SCP game, because of course, you know, SCP Containment Breach I did two Let's Plays of years ago, and SCP Containment Breach at that time was one of those games that, you know, really, really scared me. It was one of my all-time favourite horror games that I've played here on the channel. Though it's interesting, you know, because obviously that was many years ago, when I was probably in sort of my early 20s. It'd be interesting now that I'm in my early 30s. I'd be sort of curious to know, if I was to play Containment Breach again, would it still scare me to the extent that it did? Who knows? I've no idea. Maybe, maybe not. I can't really begin to say. But, essentially, you know, I was thinking about SCP entries, because I remember back in the day, I did used to read quite a few SCP entries on the SCP Wikidot, whatever the name of the site was. And it's funny because, you know, SCP certainly has its fair share of really memorable, cracking good, scary reads, you know, like the original 173 or 106. As well as other entries that I'm sure are quite memorable, like 682, or like the reptile things that can imitate human speech to lure people in, or the Plague Doctor, or even that one, I forget the number, which number it is, but is it SCP? It might be SCP-3000, but then again I probably got the number incorrect. But that one SCP that's like a giant-ass serpent in the Bay of Bengal, and it like messes with your head, and it's kind of like monster horror mixing in with existential horror, which is really, really good. I'm sure people can confirm which number that one is. Is it 3000 or is it a different one? I can't recall. But yeah, basically there's some really good SCPs out there. But for all the good ones, as you can imagine, there's also the ones that are at best sort of middling, and at worst are just cringe and silly. And so it kind of got me thinking about what SCP entries can I remember that were kind of cringy or silly ones. And it's funny because, you know, it's been a number of years, like I say, since I read SCP, and, you know, as I just shown a moment ago, I definitely can remember quite a few of the good ones. But I was thinking to myself, my goodness, there's a fucking dog riding on a rabbit then. That was very strange. Oh god, are you coming for me? Yes, you are. I'm going over here, thank you very much. No, you don't. Get out of it. Stop. fucking robots everywhere. Good lord. They're all coming over. I need to watch out. They're all having shootout, that's what they're doing. But yeah, it's like, I can't really remember too many of the cringy ones from SCP, but there is one. There is one that I do remember, and I remember it simply because of the fact that, yes, it is just it's an SCP which generates, I think, a lot of debate within the community, and the community's kind of polarised, as far as I can tell, onto those who are like, oh yeah, let this one slide, let's keep it, versus that side of people who are like, what the fuck is this SCP? This is the stupidest thing I've ever read, things like that. And to be honest, I'm on the side of the people who think it's stupid. So basically, I can't remember what number the SCP in question is, but I do remember the name of it, sort of like the subtitle that it had. And the subtitle for it was The Teenage Succubus. Now, I don't know if I've ever talked about this before on my channel, on Sir. I probably have, but to be honest, I can't remember. So you know what, I'm going to just talk about it again. And if I've talked about it before, then screw it. It'll just be a repeated conversation. But I'm sure people in the comments can probably tell me what number the SCP Teenage Succubus entry was. But basically, as soon as you read it, you just think to yourself, it feels like it was written by somebody who was horny and just wanted to turn their weird fetish into an SCP. So basically like, ooh, this girl who makes all the men around her go crazy because they fall in love and they go mad and they end up killing each other. Oh, and incidentally, in order to survive, this girl has to drink and consume several pints of semen every day. Oh, and on top of that, for some reason she has really sensitive skin, so she can't wear clothes. So basically she just has to go around nude all the time, and it's just like, who the fuck has written this? And why are they even attempting to pass this off as an SCP? It clearly reads like somebody's weirdly, barely disguised fetish. And it's just, that is by far the cringiest SCP that I've ever read. And like I say, you look at the sort of comments that people have left on that one, the debate that people have had between those who are just sort of like, just let it fly, it's funny, who cares, and those who are on kind of those who espouse a similar view to me, which is that this is the silliest SCP ever. I mean, then again, I don't know, SCP's been around so long that there are probably way sillier entries on that site by now, just saying. So yeah, if I had to say what is the cringiest SCP that I've ever read, definitely that one, because that's the one that stands out in my mind for all the wrong reasons. So I'm sure you can look that one up yourself if you type in like SCP Foundation Teenage Succubus or whatever. It'll probably come up and you'll probably be able to find which number it is. But actually, you know, on a more general note about SCP, I should probably look around to see if there's any good SCP games out there. Because you know me, I do love a good bit of horror content here on the channel. And like I say, I've been playing lots of Backrooms games, or more and more Backrooms games I should say, recently. I definitely want to play Escape the Backrooms on the channel at some point, whether single player or whether I can see if any of, I don't know, if anyone I know has bought it. Maybe I could do it co-op, you never know. It might be a possibility, who knows. So yeah, I don't want to play that, but I think looking for other SCP games might be a thing as well. I'm sure there are people still creating games based on the SCP universe out there. I'm sure if I went to, you know, a site like itch.io or something and just searched, I'd probably find them. In fact, I'd probably find loads of them. Because I remember back in the day, actually, around about the same time that SCP Containment Breach was was all the rage. I know that there were a couple of games based on SCP-087, The Staircase. See, that's a memorable SCP entry. It was a really, really good one. Yes. Need to play some SCP games at some point, like I say, who knows. I'm sure people would be interested in seeing them. I don't know. Thing is, though, you know, there are lots of kind of iconic horror monsters and concepts which, you know, at time to time always become very popular, and then everyone's sort of making short indie games based on them. But it's interesting because there's a couple of those that definitely passed me by. Ones that, you know, there were tons of games being made for them, but I never actually really played them. Like Slenderman back in the day, 2013, round about there. I played a couple of Slenderman games, but compared to some YouTubers out there, there were tons of other ones that I just never played. I mean, do you remember like the old Slenderman Shadow Unity games, those ones? I think most famously played by Markiplier. Old school Markiplier, that is. Sometimes I like to go back and rewatch those videos because they are funny. But, yeah, so Slenderman was one. Siren Head is the other big example. Everyone was making games about Siren Head when that was a thing. But I just don't recall ever really playing any Siren Head games. Not because I'm uninterested in the concept, just never really got around to doing so, that's all. But yeah, I do have, you know, I do know of some Siren Head games, and for example, you know, if I went to itch.io, or even Steam for that matter, and just went to the search bar and typed Siren Head, I'd probably find an absolute load of them. Just short Siren Head games and whatever else have you. So maybe that's something for me to play or look at sometime down the line. Who knows? Alright, we'll tell you what, I think that's a decent sort of podcast episode right there, ladies and gentlemen. I think that'll do. Let me gulp down my tea whilst I'm at it. So, yes, I just wanted to talk about the Cringiest SCP, but actually it also became a more general conversation about horror, broadly speaking, which is always fun. You know me, love my horror games. Sometimes I love to talk about horror kind of things that scare me, stuff like that. But, you know, I've certainly been blitzing out horror content on the channel most recently. Games like God's Basement, stuff like that, as well as other, you know, horror games that I played before that. The thing is, you know, I definitely have tons of indie horror games that I definitely want to play. Things that I have downloaded to my computer that I've been meaning to play at some point, but I've just never got around to doing so. Alright, Facebook and links down below, along with the link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested, and if you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated. But on that, I'm going to sign off now, ladies and gentlemen. Join me for some more sometime soon. Yeah, I really need to get back to a challenge at some point. Something a bit more interesting than just watching me waffle on about random subjects and whatever else have you. But, yeah, I'm sure I'll think up something real soon. Goodbye, everybody. The Gatling gun, ladies and gents. This is going to be absolutely interesting to see. So let's put maybe 2,000 points worth of Squires. This one. Now, I initially tested this one with one of the bugged DLC options for rapid fire, and he was pretty freaking powerful. As you can see, he's speeding up. Oh god, here we go, here we go! So does he ever stop firing to like reload or anything? He's pretty tough, as you can see. We took them all down. So obviously, with this guy, if you're going to take him out, I have a feeling you need like a fast attack unit, or to try and, you know, a fast attack unit to try and get up to him as quickly as possible before he can really start firing fast.